Hello and welcome. It's yours truly, Brian Earl here, coming to you from Christmas Past headquarters in sunny San Mateo, California. I hope wherever you are in the world that it's somewhere nice and that you're happy, healthy, and full of the Christmas spirit, just like I am every day, and my guest is as well. So let's give a nice warm welcome to Sarah in Massachusetts. Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Brian. That's a lovely introduction. Thank you.
Now, Sarah, we are recording this in early February. And I understand that you are in Massachusetts at the moment. Can you tell me a little bit about the weather there today?
Oh, it's been bizarre. So we started off this winter is very warm. I think that's kind of been across the Northeast. And even Christmas Day, I think, was like in the
Oh, yeah.
40s. And then we hit January, and all of a sudden it's like negative 22 overnight. So we went from like nice and balmy to pretty much subarctic.
Hmm.
I'm kind of expecting any minute now that Kurt Russell will show up with a flamethrower and tell us that there's something crawling around in our backyard. So, but yeah, it's pretty cold. It feels like we're in an Arctic circle ourselves. But fortunately, it looks like tomorrow is going to be in the 40s again.
Oh my
So we're
goodness.
climbing
Very
out.
nice. So
It's
as
there's a saying in Massachusetts, if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes.
yes, I think the other joke is spring was on a Wednesday last year. And
Yes.
I get to say these things because, as you might know from listening to the show, I too am from Massachusetts. I call
Yeah.
California home now, but I'm well used to those kinds of rapid fluctuations in the weather. And I've enjoyed many of the New England and specifically Massachusetts Christmas traditions growing up there. So I thought, I'm a Massachusetts person, you're a Massachusetts person. Why don't we play a game of Christmas trivia that's all about New England? Okay, so
I love it.
yeah. So, as always, our game goes in 4 rounds with 5 questions each. Most of them are multiple choice, some are fill in the blank. Along the way, I have the discretion to give partial credit or even bonus points, but standard questions are worth 1 point apiece. Along the way, we'll get a chance to know Sarah a little bit better, but for now, why don't we get to some trivia? Sarah, are you ready?
I am.
All right. Round one is that time they banned Christmas in Massachusetts. So, growing up in Massachusetts, you hear a lot about the Pilgrims. Maybe you've even been to Plymouth Plantation like I did on many a school field trip growing up. And for those who aren't familiar, that's this little, how would you describe Plymouth Plantation? Are you familiar with that, Sarah?
I did. I've gone when I was a kid in school. It's sort of like a reenactment village.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's similar to Sturbridge Village, does the exact same thing.
Yes,
So you get
exactly.
to walk around and see how they lived way back when.
And so we have the Pilgrims to thank not only for Thanksgiving, but also for basically running the Massachusetts legislature throughout the 17th century. The same people who gave us the Salem witch trials, gave us Thanksgiving, and also banned Christmas. This is really true.
Yes.
In 1659, Christmas was banned, and the ban lasted for many years. We're going to ask you 5 questions about that. First one being this. So the ban was officially passed in May of 1659. Now, the legislature gave an official reason for the ban. Was it A, to prevent disorder, B, that the celebration was a violation of the current labor laws, or C, that celebrating it caused too much of a strain on the financial system?
That's a great question. I'm gonna guess and go with A, that it was disruptive.
Yes, it was disruptive. And part of the reason for that is in New England, around that time of year, around Christmas time, it was a very agricultural society, so the harvest had happened in the fall. All of the beer was done fermenting. This was the time of year in the winter where there was plenty of drunken carousing and partying and feasting. They didn't need any help from Christmas making matters worse. So the official reason was that it was to prevent disorder. But as you probably know, the Puritans also believed that anything that was not prescribed in the scripture had no
Hmm.
place in public life, and there is actually no mention in the scripture of celebrating Christmas for what it is.
This is
All
true.
right. Question number two. When Christmas was banned in Massachusetts, anyone caught celebrating it could be fined as much as how many shillings? Was it A, a single shilling, B, 5 shillings, or C, 10 shillings?
Oh goodness, I should know this one. I think I remember it being 10 shillings, but I could be wrong.
You could be wrong, and you are. It was
Ah,
actually 5 shillings, but I'm going to give you a chance to redeem yourself. You can make up
okay.
this point if you can tell me within $10, roughly how much is 5 shillings in today's money?
Oh my goodness. That one I have to plead ignorance. I have no idea.
It's free to guess.
Oh, okay. Let's say that would probably be about $50.
Ooh, Good guess. Actually, I saw that too. I looked it up in a couple different places, and as adjusted for inflation, a number that I saw as recently as 2012 said that 5 shillings today would be about $100.
Oh, okay. Well,
All right. So pretty
not
hefty
cheap.
fine, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, really.
All right. On to question number 3. So the ban was upheld for a number of years. Was it A, 11 years, B, 22 years, or C, 35 years?
Oh, that's a good one. I'm gonna guess that one. I think it's 22.
It was 22 years, as a matter of fact. Okay, so even though the ban was lifted 22 years later, so that puts us in 1681, Massachusetts didn't officially recognize Christmas as a public holiday until what year? Was it A, 1756, B, 1806, or C, 1856?
I believe it was fairly late. So I'm gonna go with C. I'm gonna say 1856.
Exactly right. So, and that was true. I think Oklahoma was the last state in the Union that officially recognized Christmas as a public holiday, and it was actually later than 1856. It is always surprising, even though I've gone over this kind of material 100 times. Every time I read facts like that, I'm like, oh my goodness, Christmas as we know it, at least here in America, is very, very, very new.
Oh, yes.
All right.
And I didn't know that about Oklahoma, so thank you. And
Yeah.
I've got a new piece of information.
Okay. Despite lifting the ban and officially recognizing the celebration, some reverberations of the ban lasted for many, many years. For example, classes in Boston public schools were held on Christmas Day as late as what year? A, 1870, B, 1900, or C, 1925?
That's a good one. I'm gonna say as late as 1900.
Close. It was actually 1870.
Ah.
Um,
I
and
wasn't sure if it was quite Charles Dickens area or not.
And stores were open on those days. And I believe 1870 or thereabouts, Congress was in session on Christmas Day. The idea of taking the day off for Christmas is actually fairly new in Christmas history. But let's see, I can give you a bonus point for this round before we close this one out. Christmas was, the schools were open on Christmas Day in 1870. After that, they weren't. And this was not only in Boston, but pretty much everywhere else in the country. Why?
Oh, okay. Good question. Because bonus point. I'm gonna guess and say that they were closed because of the temperatures, because it was too cold to be open.
No, it was actually
Yeah.
because in 1870, Ulysses Grant, who was president at the time, declared Christmas a federal holiday. So that did not happen
Oh,
until then. And then after that, everything was closed, banks and Congress and schools, etc.
my goodness, another piece of information I didn't know. I'm
Yeah.
loving this. I'm picking up all sorts of stuff I didn't know.
So at the end of round 1, you're doing great. You're on the board with 3 points. But now let's take a step back and get a chance to know Sarah a little better. Sarah, you are a cosplayer, which is something that is just not part of my world. I need a little help understanding what cosplay is and specifically what kind of cosplay you do.
Well, cosplay is basically when fans of various TV shows or comics or whatever you're kind of into, usually some type of geek culture, like to dress up like characters that they enjoy. So if you've ever seen any news reports on places like Comic-Con where you see people walking around dressed as Superman and Wolverine, that's cosplay. That's what people do. So I've been doing it pretty much most of my teenage to adult life. I started off doing my first sci-fi conventions with my dad when I was a little kid. And I believe my first cosplay was I made an old-fashioned 1960s style Star Trek uniform from a pair of sweatpants and a turtleneck and
Wow.
a couple of safety pins from around the house. So I was pretty proud of that one. But yeah, I've been doing it for a number of years, and it's a fun thing to do. I get to do the cons in it, and sometimes I can also use it at my job at the library. The kids at the library know that Miss Sarah will show up dressed as a Jedi or a fairy godmother, or who knows, whatever the library program is going to be. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. It's probably not something that I would find myself doing, but I guess I could enjoy someone else doing it. And I'd love to talk to you a little bit more about libraries after our next round. So why don't we
Right.
get into round 2, which is famous firsts. So a lot of the Christmas traditions that are known and loved nationwide or even around the world got their start right in New England. So what I'm going to do is name you 5 famous firsts. All you have to do is tell me what state these happened in, okay?
Okay.
So Question number one. In 1604, French Catholics and Huguenots celebrated the first New England Christmas in what is now known as this state.
I'm going to guess and say Maine.
It was Maine. Very good. And I said now known as this state because I believe all of that for a time was considered Mass Bay Colony and then it got broken up.
Yes.
Yeah. Number two, the first department store Santa Claus appeared in this state.
I remember, I think you talked about this on your podcast, didn't you? I think it was, in fact, Massachusetts.
It was indeed. Bonus point. Can you tell me what town or city?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask me that. I don't remember. I listened to the episode, but it was about a month and a half ago, so I'm blanking on it.
Well, you got the answer right, so it's okay. It was Brockton, Massachusetts, which is
Brockton,
the town
of course.
right next to, or city rather, right next to the town where I grew up, at a store that's no longer around, Edgar's Department Store. James Edgar, apparently the first person ever to put on a Christmas costume and go to a department store acting as Santa.
So also a cosplayer.
Also a cosplayer, exactly. Question number three. The first known example of an indoor Christmas tree in America is thought to be when German POWs from the Battle of Bennington set one up in a cabin in the town of Windsor Locks in this state.
Oh, that would be Connecticut.
It would be Connecticut. Very good. All right. Question four. The well-known Christmas songs Jingle Bells and It Came Upon the Midnight Clear were both written in this state.
I believe that's also Massachusetts.
Totally was. Although, as you may or may not know, there's some dispute on whether Jingle Bells was in fact written in the town of Medford, Massachusetts, or if it was written in Georgia. Both towns actually have plaques commemorating the song being written there, and the issue was never resolved. But I think the official line was that it was written in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question in this round. President Coolidge presented the first national Christmas tree in Washington, D.C. in 1923. That tree came from Coolidge's home state of what?
Oh, I think. Oh, goodness. I can't believe I don't know this one. I believe I'm going to guess New Hampshire?
Close, but... Well, I mean, in New England, all the states are close.
I know.
But it was actually Vermont.
Oh, Vermont.
Coolidge was from Vermont. Well...
See, my history teacher would be very disappointed in me on that one.
Well, you could tell your history teacher that you're on an upward trend, okay? You had 3 correct answers in the last round, 4 correct answers in this round, but now let's pause a little bit again and talk to Sarah about libraries, because libraries are one of my favorite places in the world. It's where I do a lot of my research for Christmas Past, a lot of my writing too, as a matter of fact. What is something that most people underappreciate about libraries?
Well, it's funny. I think that a lot of people still think of libraries as just being sort of book depositories, which of course we are. We have, books and information, but really we're becoming, and to some extent have always been, community centers. A lot of what I do in my daily job is some research, but a lot of it is interacting with the public and helping them with things that a lot of people wouldn't even think of in a library. So some of my job, for example, is teaching senior citizens how to do basic computer things, how to email the grandkids, kind of a thing. I help job seekers fill out resumes and figure out how to contact companies online. I obviously do story hours for children and things like that, but I run programming for teens, and we do all sorts of different things there. We even have things like knitting groups and, history book clubs and all of these things that I think a lot of people don't realize are happening right underneath their noses. Yeah. So we can, very much in a real way, be very much like a community center on top of being a place that you get books. And then, of course, we're all sort of information junkies. So I often find sometimes that a patron will come in and ask for information, and even after I've gotten them what they need and they leave, I go, that was a fascinating question. I wonder what else is in here. And then suddenly I'm looking up a book and I'm deep down the rabbit hole. Yeah. So that can be a lot of fun too. But yeah, we're very much community centers as much as we are anything else.
So before we begin the next round, I'll give you a bonus point if you could tell me where in the Dewey Decimal System I might find books about Christmas.
Oh, well, see, that's an interesting question because it depends on what you're looking for with Christmas. So, for example, the holiday books, some of them would be in the late 200s
Mhm.
because it would be considered part of folklore and mythology. There's other aspects of it that might be in the 700s because you'd be looking for things like how do I maybe make homemade decorations for my Christmas tree, or if you want a gingerbread cookie recipe, then you're going to want to look in the 600s, 640s actually for cookbooks. So it's a kind of a trick question. It can be in multiple places all around the library.
Okay, well, for tricking you, I'll give you a bonus point because that's on me. I
That's okay.
I tend to go to where the Christmas history books are, and honestly, I forget they're in like the 200s, 300s, something like that.
I think those Christmas history would most likely be in the mid 300s.
Hmm.
Although again, it could be if it's part of American history, you're looking at the 900s.
Okay.
So it can be all over the place.
Well, I think the one thing that is for certain is that libraries are awesome, and anyone who has not
Yeah.
visited a library recently must certainly go visit one. What library do you work at, by the way?
Please. I'm with the Springfield City Library,
Ah,
which is actually 9 different branches all around our city. So I mostly work at a branch called East Springfield, but they kind of foster me out to other branches when needed. So I'm a little bit everywhere.
and Springfield, of course, has a very tight connection with Christmas because a famous author who wrote a very famous Christmas book is
Oh
from
yes.
there. Who would that be?
That would be Dr. Seuss, who wrote one
Yeah,
of my absolute favorite Christmas stories, The Grinch Who Stole Christmas.
exactly
In
right.
fact, we did a parade a few years ago with the library, and I did a simple Grinch costume and walked with the library as the Grinch.
Oh,
So
that's
it was a lot
awesome.
of fun.
Well, if you have pictures of that, by all means, send them to me. I'll put them on the blog at christmaspast.media or maybe in the
I
Facebook group. This is my little chance
absolutely.
to take a break during these every now and then to say, sure, if you guys are not in the Facebook group or if you're not following me on Twitter or Instagram or any of that, please do look in the show notes below. I'll have links to all of that, and you might just see a picture of Sarah dressed up as the Grinch or one of her other cosplay characters. But
I'm in the Facebook group, and it's a lot of fun. Come join us.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And we celebrate year round. I was posting things there this morning, as a matter of fact. So we'd love to welcome you to the family. And we'd also love to go to another round of Christmas trivia. This one is Christmas in Connecticut, Hallmark or Lifetime. Now,
Oh goodness.
are you a fan of Hallmark Channel movies?
I do watch them occasionally. Yes.
Every now and then?
Yeah,
Me
yeah.
too.
I'm a little more
I'm warming
Netflix
up
these
to them.
days.
Um, but as you may know, most of them are filmed in Canada for a variety of reasons. However, in recent years, more and more are being filmed in Connecticut. So, what I'm going to do is give you the IMDb description or a 1 or 2 sentence description of 5 movies. These are each movies that were filmed in Connecticut within the last few years. All you have to do is tell me whether that movie was a Hallmark Channel movie or a Lifetime Channel movie. Okay?
Okay.
Let's give it a go. Number 1, in a very merry toy store, 2 rival toy shop owners reluctantly join forces when an unscrupulous toy magnate opens a box store in their town. Hallmark or Lifetime?
Oh my goodness. I'm gonna say Lifetime.
That was Lifetime. Very good. Bonus point. Can you name either of the stars of that movie?
Oh goodness, no. To be honest, I don't know the film.
Mario Lopez was the male lead, and I honestly forget who the woman was, but anyway.
Oh, I think no, I do know. I've heard of this one. I haven't seen it, but I remember seeing Mario Lopez's name.
Okay, question number 2. In Romance at Reindeer Lodge, 2 people who have sworn off holiday activities find themselves stranded at a Christmas-themed ranch. Hallmark or Lifetime?
Oh goodness. I'm gonna say Hallmark on that one.
That was Hallmark. Have not seen that one, but it sounds kind of nice actually. I like.
It sounds
uh,
very Hallmark.
yeah, yeah, it sounds very Hallmarky. Romance at Reindeer Lodge. And again, these are all filmed in Connecticut. Question number 3. In Christmas at Pemberley Manor, an event planner must convince a wealthy man to let her use a historical estate as the site of a holiday festival.
Oh my goodness. Let's go with Hallmark on that one again.
That was indeed Hallmark. These questions are great because you have a 50-50 chance of getting each of
I
them.
know, it's true.
Okay. Okay, in A Very Nutty Christmas, a workaholic baker receives a magical nutcracker who turns into a real man and helps her
Ooh.
understand the true magic of Christmas and love.
Oh, that sounds really sweet. Oh goodness. I'm gonna go with Lifetime on that one.
That was Lifetime. So you're getting these all right. So I wonder, is there a pattern you're noticing? Which ones sound more Lifetimey and which ones sound more Hallmarky?
It's funny. I the Hallmark ones, I think, not always, but they seem to be slightly more sort of family oriented, where the
Yeah.
Lifetime ones, I think, are slightly more like romantic, sort of romantic comedy oriented. Although that's not always the case, noticed. But I don't know. Hallmark seems to aim for families a little bit more.
Yeah, I think you're right in that. But there is a definite somethingness to both of them that you can kind of tell.
It's
So let's
true.
let's see if you can do a clean sweep in this round with question five.
All right.
In
All right.
Christmas on Honeysuckle Lane, a woman a woman comes home to celebrate Christmas for the last time with her siblings in the house they grew up in.
Oh, that sounds like a nice one too. Let's go with Hallmark on that one.
Exactly right. And I think your theory is correct, right? She goes home to visit her family. So maybe
Right.
family focus. All right. So first round you had three questions. Second round you had four questions correct. And now this one you have five questions correct. So let's see if we can keep that winning streak
Oh
going.
yeah.
But getting back to libraries a little bit, I understand that you do some lectures on libraries around the New England area. Can you tell me a little about that?
I do. So I started doing this about 10 or 12 years ago, actually. And a lot of the material I started with was more the pop culture stuff. So I do a selection of lectures on things like, for example, I do one on American comic books and sort of the history of how comics became a thing in America. But it's kind of really an American history lecture that's disguised as a comic book lecture.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of started branching out a few years ago into some other areas that I was interested in. I've been the kind of person that's always been fascinated by stories, which I think is kind of the tie-in of all of this. So several years ago, I started doing lectures on kind of spooky, scary mythology in New England. So like ghost stories
Mm-hmm.
and, funny things out in the woods and stuff like that. And then 2 years ago, I was like, I love the spooky stuff for Halloween, but there's so much odd Christmas stuff out there. Like I'd love to be able to do a lecture on, interesting, weird Christmas traditions that kind of have that Tim Burton-y spooky overlay to them.
Yeah.
And so I branched out into Christmas, which is funny enough how I find your podcast.
Oh,
So it's just been something that I've done for a while, and I'm starting to kind of branch out in a few other areas. But I really enjoy it, and it's a way I think to get people some information and maybe get them interested in following up with their own research
mhm.
on some topics that they might not even have thought to look into ahead of time. So I've been doing that sort of on the side of the library stuff for quite a few years now.
And so what would be an example of a myth or legend around Christmas or something weird?
Oh my goodness, there's so many good ones. So one of my personal favorite are the Yule Lads, which are out
Ah,
of sort of Sweden and that whole area.
yeah.
So they're this kind of pack of mischievous or sometimes a little bit sinister dwarf-like characters that over the 12 days of Christmas sneak into your house and do various things. And if you're particularly bad, sometimes they really punish you. And they have a troll for a mother who will sometimes snatch up unworried kids and take them away into her lair. So watch the children around
Mhm.
Christmas. And they also have what's referred to as the Yule Cat, who
Yeah.
will eat up any child that doesn't get new clothing for Christmas. And there's actually reasons for all of those myths, but just the idea, I have two cats of my own, and just the idea of like this sneaky black cat kind of going around and eating up any unruly children that didn't get
Yeah.
a new dress for Christmas just made me laugh. I thought that was fabulous.
Well, I think it was in Christmas of 2016 or 2015, rather, a couple days afterwards, my wife and I went to Iceland, where the Yule lads are a big thing. And the,
Oh,
the,
yeah.
the witch mom, too, Grilla, I believe her name is. And at
Yep, that's her.
the Reykjavik airport, they actually have a statue of her, and in front of her is a cauldron where she makes her witch's brew, apparently. You can sit in it and have your photo taken. And I ended up getting a Christmas ornament that was one of the Yule lads. So the Yule lads are kind of like the seven dwarfs, they each have their own little personality.
Yeah. Yes,
And
exactly.
there's one called Spoon Licker. Apparently, like he'll just sneak in and like just lick your spoons or something. So I have an ornament of him.
Oh, he's fantastic. He's one of my favorites, and I love Sausage Stealer. He's my
Yeah, the
other
sausage.
because you gotta
What are the
love
other ones? There's
sausage.
a window
Oh, I don't.
keeper.
There is. I don't remember all of them, but one of them is like candle eater or candle dripper, so he takes all the wax from your candles. There's one that will leave like your house more dirty. He leaves dust and things all over the
Yeah.
place. There's a pot licker, so he'll steal all your leftovers and lick the bottom of your pots. Like
Uh-huh.
it's just it's wonderful group of these odd little Christmas characters that we don't have anything quite like that here in America.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
but you should post that picture of that ornament. I'd love to see your little Yule lad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll put that in the Facebook group, everybody. I think it's been on my Instagram feed, but I'll bubble that one up because,
Oh,
yeah, I love those guys. I might do an
they're
episode
fabulous.
about them sooner or later.
Oh, you should. They're
Yeah.
fantastic.
So here's something else I might do an episode about sooner or later is the Enchanted Village. Are you familiar with the Enchanted Village from Massachusetts?
I've heard of it. I've never actually been to the area that it was, and it's closed down now, isn't it? Am I wrong about that? Is that
It
the
was
theme
closed
park was?
down. So, by way of
Yeah,
background,
yeah.
starting in the 1940s, at the flagship Jordan Marsh store in Boston's downtown Crossing neighborhood, they had an enormous, sort of like walk-in snow globe kind of enchanted Christmas village display. And that was there for many, many years. And then eventually it was taken down and put back up. Different people have owned it over the years. And so I'm going to ask you 5 questions about the Enchanted Village. It's kind of a New England landmark, kind of a family tradition for a lot of people. So this is the Enchanted Village over, under, or before and after challenge. I'm going to tell you some
Okay.
things about the Enchanted Village, and then we're going to be talking about dates or figures or something. I'm going to name a figure or a date, and all you have to do is tell me whether the actual date or figure is above or below the one that I name. Sounds a little confusing.
Okay.
You'll get it. So
Okay.
the original display at Jordan Marsh was a sprawling recreation of a New England village scene, occupying how many square feet? Was it over or under 5,000 square feet?
I'm gonna say over.
It was over. It was, as a matter of fact, 8,000 square feet, the original display. People came from all over New England to see the display, and it was not uncommon for as many as how many people to visit this every year? Was it over or under 100,000 people?
Oh, good question. I'm gonna say it was under 100,000.
It was actually over. It was almost,
Over.
this is in the heyday of Jordan Marsh, over
Oh.
200,000 people.
Oh, wow.
And anyone who's been to Boston's downtown Crossing neighborhood knows what a congested area that is. So all of those people lining up to see or trying to get into Jordan Marsh must have been quite a sight to see. The village appeared for many years until Jordan Marsh closed down the display. When they closed the display down, was it before or after the year 1970?
Gonna have to guess that one. I'm gonna say before 1970.
It was actually after. It was 1972.
Oh my goodness.
They closed it down. I couldn't really figure out why. I'm assuming it was just because it was too much of a hassle for upkeep and things like that. They closed it down. They put it back up again. So here's our fourth question. They would eventually revive the village and for a while, but then they sold it to Macy's. I think the Jordan Marsh store became a Macy's. Macy's
Hmm.
started using it in their displays and their windows, etc. Was that before or after 1990?
I believe it was before 1990.
It was 1998.
No.
Yeah.
Oh goodness, I didn't realize it was that late.
So Macy's had it going until from 1998 until I think it was like 2001. They did not it didn't last very long. It
Yeah.
eventually ended up in a warehouse, and the city of Boston bought it, and they said, "Okay, we're going to put it up." There's an area called Heinz Convention Center in Boston. There's also right on the City Hall Plaza. They sort of set up these big circus tents and displayed it there for a couple of years, and eventually, even they said, "This is just too much." Everything ended up in a warehouse in disrepair until someone came along and saved it. So City of Boston stopped displaying it in 2006. In 2009, the furniture store Jordan's Furniture, no relation to Jordan Marsh, bought the display at an auction. Was the winning bid over or under $200,000?
I'm gonna say over 200,000.
It was under $200,000. It was, as a matter of fact, $140,000
Oh
was
wow.
was the winning bid, and then I think all told it was something like 175,000 with auction fees and all of that. And so Jordan's Furniture is also in the other town that's next to Stoughton, Massachusetts, where I grew up. It's at this huge furniture store, and again, the hundreds of thousands of people come to see it every year. New England tradition where you can even do indoor ice skating at this furniture store. So anyone who's in Massachusetts and want to just you happen to find yourself on Route 24, by all means, get off at exit 19B and go to Jordan Marsh or Jordan's Furniture and check out the Enchanted Village. So let me see for this round. Sorry to say, your hot
That's okay.
streak came to an end, and you got yourself
Apparently,
only.
I'm better with Hallmark than I am with dates.
Yeah. So let's see. You have a grand total of 14 points, which is really good for one of these games. One of the
Thank you.
higher performers so far in our Christmas trivia game series. So congratulations, Sarah, on 14
Oh, thank
points.
you.
Now, I know it's only early February, but I like to ask people if you know how you're going to be spending Christmas this year.
Well, the likelihood is that I'll be hosting dinner at my home again. I've been
Mhm.
doing it the last few years. Turns out I really enjoy cooking, so I took it over a few years ago. But I actually have a little bit of a tradition during the Christmas season where we have multiple events that happen down here. I'm in the Springfield, Massachusetts area, so I'm a little bit closer to the Connecticut border than you were. And so there's multiple events. We have a festival of trees that we do to support the local Boys and Girls Club. And believe it or not, it's one of the things we do. We donate a Christmas tree and help out with the charity event. And we're actually already planning our Christmas tree for it. We did a sci-fi theme last year, and then this year we're doing one that imitates the sort of Swedish. I think it's Swedish and Iceland and a few other places do it, where they do the book flood right around Christmas. That's
Okay.
tradition to give books on Christmas. So we're actually doing a book-themed Christmas tree for the event. But we also do, we go see the lights in the area, and we have an event that happens at our local museums every year that we go get dressed up and go to. So we make the whole month pretty about the very end of November until about right after New Year's is pretty special out here.
Well, sounds great, and I hope you'll share some photos in the Facebook group. And
Promise.
okay, so we're going to bring this game to a close with 14 points. Sarah, congratulations and thanks for
Thank
playing.
you.
Everyone
Oh my
else
God, this
watching,
is so much fun. Thank you.
I hope you had fun, and I bet you would have even more fun if you played along yourself. So if you'd like to put your Christmas spirit to the test, please get in touch at christmaspastpodcast@gmail.com. And who knows, someday soon I could be playing Christmas trivia with you. Until then, we'll say bye-bye. Thanks again to Sarah, and thank you for watching.